Hello, everybody. Welcome into the NBA Front Office Show, Tuesday, October 15th edition. We're a week away, Keith. The NBA season, the regular season, just a week away. Preseason action. It's been pretty interesting, to say the least. We'll talk a bit more about that today. We need to talk about what's going on with the Sacramento Kings. They actually made a move. They made a trade. We'll talk about that. Plus, De'Aaron Fox, his future with the team after not wanting to do an extension. What does that mean? We'll talk a little bit about some injuries that are happening as well. The San Antonio Spurs, what's going on with them. And the end, we're going to highlight our breakout players for the season. I'm excited for this. Make sure you do subscribe to the channel. Remember, we hit 35,000 subscribers by the end of the month, and we're going to dress up in our Halloween costumes. I'm excited for this. Let's go.
Yeah, I'm excited too. It's funny, on our show from yesterday, somebody commented, why is Keith always smiling so big at the beginning of the show? And, I'm smiling extra big because we're a week out from the season starting. Right. So I'm just super excited. But in reality, and I mean this with all sincerity, and I'm not just saying this, like, pretty much get to live out my dream almost every day. Like, it's like my job is to watch, write, and talk about basketball. Like, there's not anything better I could imagine having to be my job. So I really do wake up every day pretty grateful, pretty happy. Yeah, I have bad days. Don't get me wrong. I do. But for the most part, they're pretty limited. Like, because I when I look around, I'm like, yeah, if things are really going wrong, I can dive into work by watching hoops, and it's my favorite thing in the world. So the fact that I get to do it and then come on the show and talk about stuff and share my thoughts on things, man, it's hard not to be very happy and have a big smile on my face.
That's a great way. What a positive way to start the show, Keith. Putting everything into perspective. When all else fails, we get to talk about basketball. Now this feels bad that I'm starting off the show with a negative category. That
I should bring it down.
Now that Keith brought us all up with the feel good vibes, now let's bring it down and let's talk about injuries. Eeyore. All right. Oh boy, Keith. Kawhi. Let's keep it positive. Paul George. We'll start there. Paul George hyperextended his knee. As soon as I saw it, because social media started buzzing, already Paul George hurt his knee. I saw it. I went, oh, he's fine. It was not that bad. He's going to be okay. The 76ers are optimistic, but still a little bit of a knee thing for Paul George. Maybe that impacts, him playing the rest of preseason. But before we get into these other guys, at least, sigh of relief, bullet dodged. Paul George, I really think he's going to be okay. His little knee thing, I think it's a lot of nothing.
Yeah, we hope, right? Nick Nurse gave a little update today and said Paul George is definitely out for tomorrow's preseason game. Yeah. Said they still have some imaging to do, but that it doesn't seem overly serious. I think I can pull his exact quote here. It is everything checks out okay, but that they will do further imaging, and that'll give us a better idea at that point of what might be going on inside Paul George's knee. You get a little worried just because he has a history of injuries. So you just want to make sure that, everything is okay. It's kind of like, right, it's weird. They're teammates now, but it's like every time Joel Embiid hits the floor hard, or you're very familiar with it. Anytime Anthony Davis, who falls awkwardly at least once per game, hits the ground,
more than that.
Like pop up.
It's the drinking game of death for Lakers fans. Yeah. They take a shot every time that AD hits the ground. You don't make it through the game.
Yeah, Kristaps Porzingis now for the Celtics, right? Mm-hmm. Anytime he goes down, it's like, just get back up, right? So there's just certain guys, and Paul George's, that's where he's at, because these guys have track records of they don't always pop right back up and play like nothing's wrong. So I get the worry. There, my guess is done for the preseason anyway. I don't know how many games Philly has left. Everybody's got, at most, I think 1 or 2 to go here. Preseason does wrap up on Friday. So we're just about done anyway. So shut him down, get him healthy. Hopefully this isn't anything that lingers. It'd be great if he's available opening night, but if not, the way they're talking out of Philadelphia sounds like probably, shortly thereafter.
Well, see, I hadn't seen that Nick Nurse quote. Now I feel a little bit less up to the whole, there's going to be more imaging done. But again, I still go back to, if you saw the play, you look at it and go, oh, I mean, guys do that in just about every pickup game that you see. If you go to a run for a couple hours, you're going to see somebody do that just kind of steps awkwardly, and it ends up being a lot of nothing. So hopefully that's what happens here. But okay, I'm slightly more nervous now that he said more imaging is coming. Now, Kawhi Leonard, on the other hand, his former teammate, it looks like the start of the season is very much in jeopardy. There were some comments going around last night from Ty Lue about how the group that started the Clippers last preseason game was probably going to start the regular season for them. And of course, that did not include Kawhi Leonard. Keith, I mean, is this just here we go again with Kawhi Leonard? Where are we at here with him? Is this... I don't want to see another lost season for Kawhi, and this is not good starting the season this way.
Yeah, I feel like we are at the point with Kawhi where he's just permanently questionable. Like he's probably going to be questionable for most games this season. And if he plays, great, you're happy, and he plays. And if he doesn't, all right, we're moving on in a different direction. It seems like a lot of the Clippers players have been preparing for, hey, maybe we won't have him all the time. We've heard James Harden talk about, hey, I can still be that guy if I need to be, which says in my mind, says he's prepared to take on a much bigger scoring load if that's what the need be. But we've heard guys like Norman Powell, even Derek Jones Jr., Terrence Mann talk a little bit about, hey, I'm ready to do a little bit more if they need. And then they talked a lot about how, which is weird because Kawhi is still one of the better defensive players in the league. Like they're going to really lean on their defense this year. Jeff Van Gundy has built some stuff for them scheme wise that they feel really good about, that they can run and go to at times. So I think that's going to be interesting. But yeah, man, I'm with Kawhi. It's like, all right, tell me when he's playing, and that's great. But at this point, I expect he'll play somewhere around 50-ish games. Maybe that's even too high. I don't know. And I don't really know what to make of them. And I think the Clippers they're in that big pile of teams in the West that aren't Portland and Utah and aren't Oklahoma City, Denver, Minnesota, and Dallas. Like it's kind of everybody else in the conference is there. And yeah, if Kawhi misses a bunch of time, I have a hard time seeing them make it into, never mind the playoffs, even into the postseason.
I was going to ask you, can they win without Kawhi? Could they, like James Harden, he's 35 now. He says, and by the way, maybe this is, hey, draft James Harden in fantasy, but James Harden saying, I can take on a bigger scoring load here. Do you buy that a team with this version of James Harden right now? Now he says he's in great shape. He's looked like he's in good shape. Can James Harden, can the Clippers revert to, I don't know that they would go full like heliocentric offense around Harden, but can they rely on James Harden night in, night out to be that guy like he was in Houston? Can this version of James Harden do that? And if the answer is no, is that big trouble for this Clippers team in terms of a very deep Western Conference?
Yeah, so I think we forget that version of James Harden in Houston, because I'm not going to count the couple of games he played before he got traded to the Nets. It was 5 years ago.
He was barely playing.
Yeah, that was 5 years ago. 5 years in the NBA is a lifetime, and it's like 2 lifetimes if you're post 30 years old. That's the last time, and I just looked this up to make sure. So he went on a 3-year run. He won an MVP, finished top 3, 4 consecutive years. But he won the MVP in 2017-18. Then 18-19, 19-20, he led the league in scoring each year, 30.4, 36.1, and 34.3. He has not averaged over 25 points per game in a season since then. So that is a long way of me saying, I don't think so. There it is. You got it pulled up on the screen. So I just don't see it. I really struggle to see that. I fully understand Brooklyn didn't need him to score as much. The Sixers didn't need him to score as much. But he's just not that same guy anymore that he was when he was Houston James Harden. Like, and that's not even a criticism. He's 34, 35 years old now. Like, that's not a criticism. That's just where he's at in his career at this point. Still a good player, still a very productive player, but I don't think we're going to see James Harden turn it on and average 30 plus points per night and close to a triple double. I just have a really hard time seeing that.
Yeah, that's That's going to be a big question mark. And moving into a new building, this is not what the Clippers were hoping for. They've got some guys who might be able to take a step forward, but obviously no Kawhi Leonard. This could be a big issue. Now, I mean, let's jump over to Jamal Murray, though, who's also dealing with some knee weirdness, signed a big contract, did not have a good summer with Canada in the Olympics. He didn't look like Jamal Murray. Like he looked like it was a different guy.
Yeah.
Like it was like, I don't know, just slap a different I mean, it could have been Bill Murray out there. I don't know. But it was not, he did not look like Jamal Murray. So what's going on with his knee issues? And I mean, again, how worried should the Nuggets be right now?
Yeah, I don't really know what to make of this whole Jamal Murray thing unless we are now he's in his Kawhi phase where it's going to be some nights he's fine. He looks like a great player, all NBA level guy, but other nights he can't play, and some nights he's out there and probably shouldn't be. I don't know where we're really at. What I want to see is like first month of the year, Jamal Murray is out there and plays most games and plays really, really well and looks really good. And then I'll be like, okay, I'm over all this. He's fine. He's Jamal Murray again. But I don't know. I'm a little nervous. I have to believe the Nuggets would not have committed that big extension to him if they didn't feel very confident in he can be that Jamal Murray again. I don't know why they would have done that otherwise. So that part makes me feel a little bit better about nobody should know his history with the knee and what he's facing more than Denver. But I don't know. I'm a little worried. I'm going to kind of have to see it, I guess, before I fully buy in. You're muted.
There we go. Sorry.
There it is. First show, everybody. It's okay.
Yeah, this is the first show that we've ever done. We definitely have not been doing this for years and years and years. No, so here's, peel back the curtain. Here's the situation. My wife is out of town right now on a trip for work. And so I've got the door to the studio open right now so that I can hear, just in case I have one of my dogs is a bit mischievous. She likes to get into stuff. I want to be able to hear if she suddenly decides to go nuclear and start destroying things. Well, a package just got delivered. So they started going nuts. I muted, and then there you go. Forgot to unmute. I actually unmuted the screen of James Harden's stats rather than unmute myself. Anyway, again, not like we've been doing this for years or anything like that. So
it's all good. I did, full disclosure, peek to make sure we had hit the record button, because that's happened a couple times where we've done our greatest shows ever. We'd have hundreds of thousands of subscribers, and they're just lost to the internet.
There have been some mistakes over time. Fortunately, we've been able to. Maybe we should leave in mistakes. People would find it endearing, but
sure, yeah.
But we've been able to edit out.
Yeah, we don't do
mistakes over the years.
Thankfully, we don't have to do too much editing on the show. We generally keep it fairly clean and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, hey, it's all when you do literally hundreds of episodes of a show, you're bound to have a couple misses here and there.
So, by the way, Keith, and this is obviously we are, well into unscheduled nonsense territory here. Since switching over our podcast network, since we're now with Blue Wire Podcast, just since switching over, so we did shows before then, but just since switching over, we have 724 podcast episodes.
Man, we got to be close to 1,000 then.
So. Yeah, I think we are. I think we really are. I think we're close to 1,000 here. Pretty crazy. All right, let's get into this. My final thoughts on Jamal Murray. Well, yeah, I think you're right. I think we just have to wait and see. Back on track. Let's go here. The Kings, they made a weird trade. A strange trade, not spooky weird like Halloween style, but weird enough to where you go, what are they planning here? Because the Sacramento Kings, they attach a second-round pick plus cash to Jalen McDaniels, send him to the San Antonio Spurs. The Spurs don't want him. The Spurs are just going to waive him. What the Spurs are doing is they're taking whatever the difference is going to be. And last I saw, the amount of cash being sent hadn't been revealed yet. But they're going to take the difference between McDaniels' contract, which I recall was about 4.7-ish, 4.8-ish million bucks, and then subtract however much cash the Kings send over. Whatever the difference is, that's essentially what the Spurs are paying for a second-round pick. But why are the Kings doing this, Keith? This gives them more wiggle room under the luxury tax. They're now over $5 million below the tax. They were just over $1 million below the tax before. But now they have to fill a roster spot. So what's going on in Sacramento?
Yeah, and the reason they have to fill a roster spot is the Kings now will drop to 14 players on, or excuse me, 13 players on standard contracts, and you can only do 2 weeks at a time and 28 total days with less than 14 players under contract in an NBA season. So that means they're going to have to fill that 14th spot at some point. Sounds like to me, the initial read on all this, and then I did some checking, was Jalen McDaniel's just not a big part of things for the Kings. They weren't looking at him as being someone who's going to be a rotation guy for them. You're not going to find him there. Our wizard over at Spot Track, Scott, has already moved him along to the Spurs, but was not going to be a rotation guy. So for the Kings, it was 4.7 million or whatever it is. We don't really need that. We'd rather have the wiggle room under the tax line, almost 6 million total now under the tax line, and the open roster spot. So we're willing to give up a second round pick to move off of McDaniels. I then read last night as I was getting ready for bed, Jason Anderson of the Sacramento Bee reported this might be the precursor to a much bigger move for the Kings. Did not hint at all what that might be or anything like that, but the Kings have been very open about they went and got DeMar DeRozan. They re-signed Malik Monk with the idea of we're going for it. We are trying to be not just they broke the playoff drought a couple of seasons ago. We are trying to get back into the playoffs, but not just get back in. Like we want to be a contender in the Western Conference, and maybe there's another big move out there that they're going to make. We'll see. I don't know what it would be at this point in time. Like it seems a little like, all right, what would it be? There's no glaring needs on this roster where it's like, oh my gosh, they don't have this or that. Like then nothing jumps out fully at you when you look at their team. But I'm intrigued at least from that respect.
So Keith, here's the thing, and this is why something is fishy here. If you're Sacramento and you're going all in to try to win right now, right? As you said, that's what they're trying to do. You didn't need to move McDaniels. You didn't need to do this. You could say, well, it saves us $4 million, whatever it is, his salary minus the money that you had to give up in cash. It saves us a few million dollars. That's not nothing. Well, sure. But for a team that's going all in to win right now, you don't want to give up a second round pick just to save a few million dollars, because that second round pick could be the difference between getting a deal done or not at, let's say, the trade deadline. That's going to put you over the top. So you don't want to give up that second round pick, even if it saves you a couple $1 million, if you're really trying to win right now. And that's your plan. Now, if they were dropping below the luxury tax, I would say, okay, I get it. They drop below the luxury tax. This is, I mean, not just are you saving the money on his contract, but now you're going to get a check from the teams who paid the luxury tax. It's a big swing financially. It's a much bigger deal. That would make some sense. That's not the case here. And so it only makes sense if there is something else that they're planning. I've seen some Kings fans that said, well, maybe it's Markelle Fultz. Maybe we'll bring him in. Is it cash plus a second round pick? Is it worth that just to get Markelle Fultz? Maybe, but it does feel like there's something else going on here to create that urgency for the Kings to say, yes, we will surrender an asset that we could use in the future in order to free up this room right now. Typically, teams don't open up room like this unless they need that room. And so it seems a little strange here.
And to your point about if this was just about getting under the luxury tax, if this was done in February and it was like, we need to do this to get away from the tax. Okay. The teams do that all the time. Yes. Like that's just smart business. I always say, if you're within range of avoiding luxury tax, you should. There's just one, from a ownership perspective, I'm going to get that check from the league. And two, the second part of that is if you're thinking you might be in the tax in any future years, just stop the repeater clock. Like don't
Great
kick
point.
a year off that thing unless you really absolutely are ready to do that. Markelle Fultz, interesting. I don't know that they have a huge need for him there in Sacramento. It's a pretty good guard group as it is. You've got obviously De'Aaron Fox, who we're going to talk about a little bit more here in a minute. He's going to play 35 minutes a night for you as your starter. Malik Monk, Jordan McLaughlin, eventually the rookie, Devin Carter. Those guys will all play backup level of minutes. Keon Ellis is another guy. He's played kind of really any of the perimeter spots, 1, 2, and 3 for Sacramento over a couple years. They love him and his defense there. My guess is this was just about flexibility. And let's get to a point. Maybe they've got a two-way guy they really like. And they're like, we want to move one of our two-way guys over now. We'll still have an open rush spot. We'll still have a bunch of, ability to do something. Maybe there is something bigger coming. Something bigger coming just seems a little weird. We don't generally get to a week from the season and then get a big trade like that.
Keith, because we've said that so many times, I've had so many people, every time any kind of move happens, I've got people going, but you said there's no moves this time. It's rare. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. Yeah. It's rare. It's not normal for a lot of trades to happen this time of year. I know we've seen a few things happen. Obviously the Karl Anthony Towns last year, we had Damian Lillard. It's just not every year in, year out, you can set your watch and know there's a trade coming right before the season starts. No, that it's more of a rare thing. That's all. Not saying it never happens, just saying it's rare that we see trades happen this time of year.
Yeah, I want to hit on one more thing before we move off this topic. What happened to Jalen McDaniels? Like, he was a nice player for the Hornets. In his last full season with Charlotte, I had pulled it up here. He was at, 48% from the field, 38% from 3, averaged 6.2 points. Not like, oh my gosh, this guy's an all-star or anything, but just a nice player. The next year, the efficiency dipped some, especially with the Hornets, as he was in a bigger role, but he had 10 points per game, 5 rebounds per game. Looked like he was going to be pretty solid. Then he got traded to Philly. Doc Rivers never really fully trusted him, didn't play him too much, but still shot well. And then last year, completely cratered and fell apart in Toronto in a spot where by the end of the season, there was all the minutes he possibly could have had there. So also for the Kings, weird situation, right? You traded Davion Mitchell and Sasha Vezenkov and picks to get Jalen McDaniels. Mostly the idea was to get off Vezenkov, who the Raptors waived for nothing. He gave back his entire contract. So you essentially gave up Davion Mitchell and draft assets to why? So just a little odd there. So yeah, I don't know. Jalen McDaniels shines off him as a prospect. He's going to be 27. So yeah, but I don't know. I used to like him quite a bit.
That's the other piece of that. Like when you add it all up, the sequence of events.
Yeah.
Like that. Why would you do it's a weird sequence of events. It's optically a strange thing for a front office to do because people will say, we just gave up like multiple picks to net nothing, right? Just to move off of Vezenkov. We also lost Davion Mitchell. You can say you cleared some more flexibility and everything, but a weird sequence of events when you could have at least said, well, Jalen McDaniels, we really wanted to give him a look. Well, it didn't work out, right? But now already you're cutting him now or moving off of him now. There has to be urgency. There has to be something driving that for the Kings. Now, maybe Jalen McDaniels just isn't good at this point. Is he going to get another look somewhere? Does he land somewhere in the NBA this season?
I'll say yes, only because he is like 6'9", 6'10". Guy teams love athletic forwards with size that can at least have shown the ability to shoot it a little and hold their own defensively. So my guess is probably, but he might be somebody who has to go to the G League for a couple months and rehab his value a little bit there. Maybe after he's waived, one of these teams with an open spot says, actually, you know what, we'll give you a spot and bring you in, on a partially guaranteed contract or non-guaranteed or whatever. But yeah, he's certainly not going to get close to $5 million, which was what he was set to make this year. That's not going to happen.
All right. So last thing on all of this, Sacramento, a team to keep an eye on. If they are going to make a big move, to me, the contract that makes sense to move I'm keeping an eye on Kevin Huerter because I don't think any of the other big money guys, Sabonis, Fox, Monk, those guys aren't going. DeRozan, those guys aren't going anywhere, nor or are not able to go anywhere. So that's not happening. So Kevin Huerter would be the guy to keep an eye on if there is some kind of big move coming for Sacramento.
Yeah, Kevin Herter's been kind of relegated to like third, fourth wing status in their rotation as it is anyway. He's behind. Sounds like they're going to start Keon Ellis next to
Yeah.
De'Aaron Fox, keep Malik Monk in that 6-man role. So that means Herter gets pushed to kind of back up forward status behind Keegan Murray and DeMar DeRozan. And that's not terrible. Like he could still
No.
play and play fine, but you're absolutely right. I mean, we're talking 16.8 million. That's a nice tradable chunk. And if a team looks at it and says, all right, Kevin Herter can come to us and be part of our wing rotation as a perimeter shooting threat and guy who's had some nice years. I mean, he was coming off a career year with Sacramento. He had played really well his first year there. So, there's definitely that seems like the guy that would have to be part of something here if there's something else coming. But we'll see. My guess is this is more about let's save some flexibility. Let's see, but I don't know. Maybe they've got something cooking there that we don't know about, and they're ready to go. One thing we do know is De'Aaron Fox is not extending. That came out just the other day. He said, "Nope, gonna kind of play it out there." Can you pull back up their salary sheet real quick?
Yep.
So as that loads, so there it is. De'Aaron Fox, 34.8 million this year, 37.1 million next year. He could add 3 years right now onto his deal. And that would extend him out to 5 years, but sounds like he doesn't want to do that. He wants to wait. There's the chance. We talked about this with Jamal Murray before he extended. De'Aaron Fox could make all NBA in the next couple of years. And I mean, obviously win MVP or defensive player of the year. Neither one of those is happening, but make all NBA. That's not a ridiculous,
not impossible, no.
Thought for him. So if he was to make all NBA, he would be eligible then to sign the so-called super max, 35% of the cap max. So there's not a whole lot of reason for De'Aaron Fox to delay this. I don't think anything's going to happen in the next 2 seasons that would cost anything to go away for him. But my guess is he's probably going to say, let me play out this year. If I don't make all NBA, we could talk a 4-year standard max extension. And we'll kind of go from there with that. But maybe there's a chance he plays himself into the 35% max.
Yeah, I think this is the optimism of the offseason talking here, right? This is De'Aaron Fox looking at the team and going, damn, we just picked up DeMar DeRozan. I know the West is loaded, but what if we wind up being a top 3 team in the West or something like that? What if we wind up making some noise? What if DeRozan really hits with us? Maybe there's another move in the works. I know we're pushing to go on right now. Worst case, I'm going to get this deal after this year anyway. But what if we're one of the better teams in the West? We're going to get a bunch of buzz. We're going to put up a bunch of points, and my name is going to be out there to be in that all NBA. Yeah, I get it. I understand the gamble. Now, the other side, the downside is, Sean Livingston knee happens or something like that. I mean, God forbid. Let's obviously hope that that's not the case. But that's the risk factor here if you're De'Aaron Fox. But we've already seen Kevin Durant tore his Achilles and still got a max deal coming off of it. I think when you're in this tier of star, and I'm not saying De'Aaron Fox equals Kevin Durant, but still he's in that upper echelon of point guards in the NBA where the risk of catastrophic injury completely taking away your earning power for the future is minimized to a degree. So I understand the gamble. Hey, let's wait. Maybe I make all NBA. And if not, we'll revisit this next summer. I don't think this is a sign that he's unhappy in Sacramento or leaving or anything like that. This is just a financial, let me see if I can, shoot for the moon here.
I completely agree. I'll say the same thing I said about Jaylen Brown when he was in this position. Nothing here is any form of red flag, not even an orange flag or whatever would be next down the color wheel. What you worry about is if De'Aaron Fox makes all NBA this season, the Kings offer him the 35% of the cap maximum this coming summer in July. If he doesn't sign it then, he'd put up every warning light and alarm and red flag and everything else.
Light the beam. There's a red beam that would go flying up out of
exactly
out of Sacramento.
Like the red beam, because that's worrisome because he cannot get a penny more than what they could offer him in that situation, and that would mean there's something going on there. Much like I said with Jaylen Brown with the Celtics, people can go back and watch our shows from a couple summers ago when he was in that spot. I said if that is offered and he turns it down, you have to trade him. because that means there's too much uncertainty there because you cannot get anything more. You would be eligible for 5 years, 35%. That is the most you can possibly get, and you would get it right now. So in this case, today, my worry level is at negative 1,000 on this.
Yeah.
I think De'Aaron Fox is happy in Sacramento. I think Kings are where he wants to be. This is just the smart financial play for him.
All right, let's hit one more topic, and then we're going to get into our breakouts. The Spurs are going to be less tolerant of mistakes this season. Makes sense.
Yeah,
I don't think so. Go ahead. I was just going to say, I don't think they're at the point where they are. We are on a roll today.
Oh, man, what a show we're putting together. Eventually, guys, we'll figure this out. 700, 800 more episodes.
That's all we need. We'll get into it. We'll get into it in just 5 more years. Hey, if Klay Thompson can go shoot 0 for 9, Keith and I can have an off day too. Poor Klay. Poor Klay.
We're having fun.
The Spurs, they're at the point in their development where they need to start becoming less tolerant. It can't just be, well, they're all young, growing pains, all that kind of stuff. You've got Victor Wembanyama. He's ready. He's ready to win right now. There's now that, not that it's we must win, right? We have to win a championship this year. No, that's not where they're at. But it's time to start talking about that. It's time to start talking about, hey, we can't be making these mistakes out there on the floor. We need to start picking up some wins. We need to start progressing. That's all. And I'm not saying there's any danger of them not. I think they are going to take steps forward this season, but it makes sense that they go in saying, look, we can't just throw our hands up and say, well, young kids, and we're building for the future. Now's the time to start seeing some results, some real progress as we move towards being a contending team.
We all know Pop, super curmudgeonly, always, the bane of his existence is those mid-game interviews and everything he does there. If you watched him the last couple of seasons, couldn't have been more like gregarious and happy and like, yeah, let's chat. You want to sit, you want to sit on the bench and chat for the next 2 hours while we play the game? Let's do that. Like,
we're losing by 30. I don't care.
I think it's really it's the appropriate level of this is where we're at. And to your point, his quote, which I thought was really good. He was asked, where are you guys at with players learning from their mistakes? And he said, I think if anything, it's a little less tolerance. We've been since the beginning of training camp, a bit more disciplined in the sense of accountability, knowing mistakes happen too often and telling the players, you need to understand that by now. And then Trey Jones, who's really been there got there at the end of the Spurs kind of last playoff grouping, and then has been there throughout this down period. He then said, a lot of us didn't have those experiences that we went through the last couple of years. Now that we've had them, now we've brought in guys that are helping us to learn. You can't make those same mistakes over and over again. There's no room for that if we want to win. Then obviously he's talking about Chris Paul and Harrison Barnes primarily as 2 guys who have come in there. So yeah, they're in a spot where I think the Spurs are really looking at it and saying, all right, hey, we're ready to move this thing forward. This is no longer just straight rebuilding season anymore. We're going to move forward. So we can't have those mistakes. And my guess is what they mean is, guys are going to come down and turn it over. They're not going to flip out. Yeah. But if it is, hey, we've run this set 100 times in practice and I call it in a game and you're not where you're supposed to be when you're supposed to be there, that's something we're not going to tolerate. I bet we see a quicker hook for some of the players than we've seen over the last couple of years. There's going to be things. I wouldn't be surprised if we see one of our favorite things is Pop taking timeouts 30 seconds into the game because he's not happy with the effort on the first play of the game or whatever it is. Like those kind of things I think you're going to see. One other Spurs note, because I caught this yesterday as I was kind of reading stuff around the league. Keldon Johnson lost about 10 to 15 pounds. Little opposite of muscle watch, right? Because normally that's about guys adding. To me, that says Keldon Johnson. Remember, they experimented a lot with Keldon Johnson power forward and other things. Yeah. My guess is they've realized, all right, that's not really a thing. Let's get you back down a little bit, get a little bit quicker. And he said this is the best he's felt in the last few years. Keldon Johnson's a guy I know you and I have both been very high on at various
Yeah,
times
indeed.
and liked quite a bit as a player. So I'm excited to see him maybe get some of that bounce back, a little more athletic out there again, because I think that's kind of his key. I don't know that they were ever going to turn him into a real four. Not he was just too undersized for that. But you get him back to being a really super athletic three who can also shoot and maybe has good size on a lot of other wings. That's exciting to me as a development for this Spurs team.
Yeah, agree 100%. I'm a big fan of Keldon Johnson, his game. I don't know if he's long for this team or if is he part of the future with Wemby or not? We heard some rumors around him potentially being moved last season, but if his role shifts, I think what they'll want to see is how does it shake out with him this season, and then make some decisions around the trade deadline and then go from there with Keldon Johnson. But he's a guy that I was a little disappointed in last season because, like you said, he is kind of a my guy in the NBA. Speaking of which, though, look at that, Keith. See, look at that. We're back to professionalism. Did you check out that transition right there? Breakouts, the players we believe in this coming season. This is not these guys are morphing into 1A superstars. This is not these guys are turning into building blocks for their team, foundation pieces, not in all cases anyway. Some of these guys are, but mainly what we're looking at is guys that we think are going to take a significant step forward this coming season in terms of their overall production. And so I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to add in terms of how we were approaching this, Keith. But my first guy, I think, is he's going to put up some numbers.
All I'll add before you can get to your first guy here is we are in if you're 36 minutes into the show watching and you're still with us, you probably know all these guys on this list. I'm going to guess. You're a pretty hardcore NBA fan. So we're not telling you new guys to look out for. These are just guys we think are going to go to another level from where we've already seen them before. So I'll let you go with your first one because I know he's one of your favorites.
Yes. Yeah. One of my favorites, a definite target in fantasy. Because look, somebody's got to shoot in Brooklyn and you know that Cam Thomas ain't shy. He's going to get shots up. There's no denying that in just 20 minutes per game so far in preseason, only 2 preseason games played, but he's averaging 15 points in 20 minutes. Bump that up to say 30 minutes, maybe 35. Yeah, he's going to get plenty of looks. Cam Thomas gets shots up in a hurry. Volume is king. The Brooklyn Nets are not going to be good, but Cam Thomas, he's going to try to shoot them into a number of games. Ben Simmons is out there playing this year. Actually had a nice game recently, but he's not going to shoot. Cam Thomas is going to be absolutely gunning for the Nets this season, and he wants to prove that he's not a sixth man. I think he probably is, but he wants to prove that he's not. He wants to prove he's not a sixth man. He's a starter in the NBA, and this season, while they're not going to pick up a lot of wins, this is his chance to do it. So I think Cam Thomas is going to have a big, big year for the Nets.
Yeah, I think Cam Thomas looking for that big payday too, right? I don't think he's going to get extended because I think the Nets would rather, not that the Nets are going to lose him and let him walk, but they'd rather use his relatively small cap hold and keep him on the books that way and have maximum cap space going into the summer if they can. Maybe there's still room where we've got a little less than a week now to go on extension talks. 21st is the last day to get those done. So we'll see. But my guess is they are not going to extend him. So he's really out there. Let me try to get that next contract. It doesn't mean he's going to be selfish and gunning, but probably kind of does because that's how he plays. But
yeah,
it's not.
I mean, he can. But you can gun
thing.
without being selfish. Like that's his superpower. Yeah. That's what he does. That I don't look at it as him being selfish. This is what he brings to the game, and everybody knows that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think with Cam Thomas too, he plays the same way if the team is down 10 or up 10, or if he's 0 for 10 or if he's 10 for 10. He's one of those guys who believes the next shot is going in. I'm going to keep shooting. It's what I do. He's one of those guys who truly, you say, he goes and gets buckets. Like, that's what his skill is in the league. And to your point, yes, somebody has to do that on this Nets team. It's probably going to be a lot of possessions where it's him and Dennis Schroeder taking shots, but that's okay. That's not the end of the world for a team that's very much in transition. So I like that pick. I think, yeah, Cam Thomas, he's a guy I would too. We don't do a lot of this. I'd target him in fantasy basketball. He's somebody I would definitely pick up. I think he's going to be a big time stats guy this year.
All right, Keith, let's jump to your first pick. By the way, we each picked three breakouts here. Keith, your first pick?
Yeah, Brandon Miller. Again, not a guy people aren't familiar with. He's the second pick in the draft, so there's going to be a lot of people going to be like, well, I hope he's good. I just think Brandon Miller, if you watched him play last year, you saw a comfort level in his game as he went along with this Charlotte Hornets team. This is a Hornets team. I've said it over and over again. I am high on. And when I say that, all things are relative, right? I don't think the Hornets are going to be a playoff team, but right. I think they're going to be closer to the 10 seed, partially because somebody has to be in the East. Then I think they're going to be a full-on tanking team. Now, if they have injuries or things are really going south, they could pull a plug after the All-Star break and just say, forget it. We'd rather be in the lottery derby and try to lose a whole bunch of games. But I think the Hornets have the chance of being a semi-decent team this year. And I think Brandon Miller's a big part of it. If you look at his pre and post All-Star splits, they're nothing is going to jump out at you like, oh my God, these are incredible, but they're good. He took on a bigger role and he didn't lose a ton efficiency-wise. Shot it pretty good. His playmaking was pretty solid there. So I'm a big Brandon Miller fan, a big believer in Brandon Miller. I think all the reps he got as a rookie with LaMelo Ball out of the lineup were huge for him as far as him taking on. I can be the number one option every single night as a 21-year-old in the league. And there we go. And I'm glad you were able to find that and pull that up for those listening. Yeah, he went down a touch. And part of that is almost every rookie goes down a little bit because 48 games is already more than he'd ever played in a year. But look at the usage ticked up. His assists per game went up a little bit. His rebounds went up. His scoring overall went up. I'm just a big fan of Brandon Miller. I think he's going to be a really good player. I don't know the team will be good enough for him and LaMelo, maybe Miles Bridges to all be in like all-star consideration. It'd probably be one of them, if anything. But I think there's a world where Brandon Miller next season, 24-25, is knocking on the door, making an all-star team.
You know what's funny is I saw a conversation going on among basketball fans. I believe it was over on Real GM that we're talking about essentially the anti-League Pass team. So which teams do you not want to watch on League Pass this season? And the Hornets came up a bunch. And as I'm reading through all these comments, I'm like, Keith is just sitting there somewhere shaking his head right now because I agree. This is going to, people just look at them and say, oh, they were bad last season. They're going to be bad this season. I'm not saying they're going to win a ton of games. I just think they'll be fun with LaMelo Ball out there, with Brandon Miller. I think they're going to be a fun team to watch that can go on a scoring binge at any given moment. And yeah, I'm with you, Keith. I think Brandon Miller is going to have a good season this year for the Hornets. So I don't look at them as a team to stay away from. I'm the other way. I want to go and check out this team.
Yeah, 100%. They're going to be fun. They're going to play fast. They're going to get it up and down the floor. They've got a bunch of guys that can do stuff. They're probably going to play a lot of high-scoring games because there's not a lot of defense on this team just yet. That's something they're going to have to really work through. But yeah, I without getting ridiculous about it, I'm as all in on this Hornets team as I can be without being super silly.
Right. Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's jump to my next one. Brandon Podziemski for the Golden State Warriors. This is a guy who the Warriors were pretty steadfast in. We're not going to trade him. Even for a talent the caliber of Lowry Markkanen, and they were not interested in moving him. I think, despite the fact, by the way, apparently he has a broken nose, and it sounds like he's going to be out tonight against the Lakers.
Yeah, he got elbowed by Trace Jackson Davis.
Right. So, he'll be the masked man for a little bit. But the Warriors obviously very, very much like this guy. And I like him too. I think he's a really good player. And I think he's going to get kind of similar to Cam Thomas, not in a very, very different way, but opportunity is everything. I think Brandon Podziemski is going to get every opportunity. The Warriors love him. They're going to do everything they can to make sure that he is a big, big part of their team this coming season. Klay Thompson is gone. He's shooting 0 for 9 in Dallas now. And Brandon Podziemski is going to get all of the looks, everything that he can, that you can reasonably expect on a team that already has Draymond, you've got Andrew Wiggins can still do things on the wing. Obviously, you've got Jonathan Kuminga who's going to put up points, Steph Curry. It's not like Cam Thomas where who the hell else is going to shoot, right? Not that type of situation. But Brandon Podziemski, I think, is going to have every opportunity to take another step forward this season with the Warriors. They're going to feed him minutes. They're going to feature him as a big part of this team, as a big part of this offense moving forward. And I'm excited to see what he can do because he's got such a well-rounded and versatile game.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I think this kid can really do a lot. He was somebody who really flashed for me when I watched some of his film at Santa Clara because he was just always doing something. He was always around the ball, making plays, whether it was getting rebounds. He was one of those guys just got a knack for the ball. Mm-hmm. The loose balls tend to there's a reason why some of the guys show up in the hustle stats. A lot of his hustle, and some guys they kind of know where the ball's going to bounce. And he seems like one of those kids where it's like, hey, I'm going to get to it first. Can really pass, can really shoot. I think his ability to pass and do some stuff off the dribble unlocked some stuff for the Warriors a little bit more because it didn't have to be so much movement created offense. They were able to do a little bit more with his, all right, he can break down a defense a little bit, or at least he's really good at driving a closeout and those kind of things. So, yeah, I would say Steve Kerr and the Warriors have been very, very staunch in saying Stephen Curry and Draymond Green have starting spots locked up. The other 3 spots can be anybody. I'm going to be shocked if Brandon Podziemski is not a regular starter for this Warriors team. Maybe not day one, but I'd say before we're even into Thanksgiving, if he's not starting every night, I'll be completely shocked. I think he's going to be their starting 2 guard.
Yeah. Yep. Agree 100%. All right, let's get to your next guy here. And this is good. Had you not picked him, I would have picked this one. This is a great call, Keith.
Yeah, I've had Rockets fans accuse me of gaslighting and building up Jabari Smith Jr. so I can tear him down later. That's not what's happening here. I love Jabari Smith Jr. I think he's good.
Sorry, that's insane. Why would you think that far ahead of time? Like, hey, let me build this guy up because I can't wait to just come in here with a sledgehammer and tear it all down. Like, we love basketball. We want these guys to all be great. That's insane.
Yeah. There's literally one team in the league that I root against with any regular basis, and we all know who it is exactly. And I even want all their guys to be really good. Like, basketball is just at its best when everybody's healthy and everybody's good. Yeah. So, Jabari Smith Jr., he was super messy his rookie season. And you could see there were a lot of things that got kind of sideways for him at times. There were times when it wasn't so good. He didn't do really well with any of the efficiency types. He shot barely over 40%. Wasn't doing really well. Last year, the leap happened. Some will say, well, that's normal second-year improvement. Yeah, to some extent. But on a team that had more weapons and better players, his role was about the same. He took 11 shots per game, but 45% from the field, 36% from 3, jumped up in his rebounding, jumped up in his passing, defensive numbers about the same. He is really, really good. And I think what we're going to see with Jabari Smith Jr. moving forward is, I've said this before and people didn't love it. I think there's a world, not a huge chance, because I also love Alperen Şengün. Mm-hmm. Jabari Smith Jr. is the best player on this Rockets team. I like Damon Thompson. I like Reed Shepherd. I even still kind of like Jalen Green. He's probably the one I'm least high on of their younger guys. But I think Jabari Smith Jr. is excellent. I think he's going to be huge this year. One of the things that I looked up to make sure I wasn't crazy, and then I went back and watched some film on him just the other day, actually. He did far better with self-created looks than I thought. He actually didn't shoot great on catch and shoot stuff, but self-created where he had to take a dribble or two, he actually was pretty good. So I think that's another sign that there's more to unlock here. There's a reason this guy was in the mix to be the number one overall pick a couple seasons ago when it was Paulo Banchero, then Chet Holmgren, because he's that good. And I think the sky is the limit for this guy. I think he's going to be awesome. And I think, he is, there's a chance again, like I said, there's a world where he's the Rockets' best player in a couple seasons. I think it'll probably be Şengün, but I'm not going to completely write it off that it's Jabari Smith Jr.
Yeah, I mean, certainly could be. He's an incredibly talented player, and I can't wait for what we see out of him this coming season. Again, the Rockets, I mean, they're a rocket ship. The arrow is pointing up right now. They are, they are a team on the rise, and Jabari Smith Jr. is a big part of that. I agree. I think this is a fantastic call. I like him a lot. I can't wait to see what he can do this coming season. I'm going to jump over to another guy, and that's Evan Mobley, who I think that the Cavs, if you take a look at what's happened here, now obviously they gave Jared Allen that big contract. I'm not saying they're going to move on from Jared Allen necessarily, but look what happened last season. You see here, this is via Cleaning the Glass, does a nice job breaking down positionally where a guy spends most of their time. 56% of his minutes at the 4 last season, 44% at the 5. That's up from just 31% of his minutes the previous season at the 5, up from 23% of his minutes the prior year to that, his rookie year at the 5. So as time has gone on, we are seeing about 10% more Evan Mobley minutes at the 5. And it's yielding some positive results. If you look at over the years, he's been better in terms of his net impact at the 5 than at the 4. Especially what pops to me, look at the defensive points per possession ranked in the 90th percentile when the Cavs did when Evan Mobley was at the 5. That's pretty impressive. 93rd percentile when he's at the 5 the season before. So there are some real advantages to having the mobility that he's got playing at that center position. So I think we're going to see more of it. I think we saw them lean upon it a bit in the playoffs last year out of necessity because Jared Allen got hurt. But I think the versatility to float between the 4 and the 5 is so critical. It's such a key feature of Evan Mobley's game. And I think this is the year that we finally see a flip where it's maybe 50-50, maybe even he spends a little bit more of his minutes at the 5. And I think that's going to unlock him that much further. Now, the offensive game, he's still got some strides to make there. But this is a guy who's incredibly talented, incredibly versatile. It felt like he kind of plateaued for a couple of seasons there. I think that perhaps featuring more of his minutes at the center position this coming season, which even with Jared Allen is what I'm expecting, I think that's going to allow Evan Mobley to take that next leap forward in his progression.
I think how he gets more minutes is I think he just plays more, period. And I think that's how you'll see him get more minutes. I think Cavs will play very few minutes outside of injuries, obviously. If one of them's out, then that's a different story. But in games where they both play, I think you'll see almost no minutes during the competitive portion of the game without Mobley or Allen on the floor. Yes. There were a handful of times a year ago when they didn't play. One of them would come out. And I'm glad you just pulled this one up because that's where I had gone to too. He dropped 4 minutes per game from the prior year. Now, why? Who really knows, right? That's a bunch of different things there. Some of that was he did have some injuries early in games that cost him to lose, large chunks of games. But sure. Yeah, I'm with you on Evan Mobley. I think you're going to see the Cavs, two things. One, spot on with you that you'll see more of him at center spot. And then the second thing is I think you're going to see them run a lot more stuff through Evan Mobley, where a lot of those elbow actions, a lot of the stuff where it is, some of the, like Bam Adebayo is one of the best guys in the league at this, some of the DHO stuff, some of the fake DHO stuff, because he can't put the ball on the floor for a couple dribbles. And what's important is early, first couple of years, it was put the ball on the floor for a couple dribbles and force up something at the rim. Now it is put it on the floor, and if it's not there at the rim, find a shooter, find a cutter, find somebody to pass it out to. So, yeah, I love Evan Mobley. He's still playing around with our preseason predictions for the season. He's somebody that I'm toying with, maybe defensive player of the year. I haven't quite decided, but it wouldn't shock me if that's where he ended up.
You mean it's not just automatically Wemby? That seems to be the sentiment out there right now, is that Wemby gets it by default.
I think one of the challenges with Wemby is going to be he is going to have to be so singularly good himself to lift the Spurs, who I don't think will be very good as a team defensively. And I'm not going to bet against Wemby. Maybe he can do that, but I know a lot of people are there. And I'll say this too, like anybody who's like completely discounting Rudy Gobert, that seems crazy because he's still there every single year in the mix to win deep point.
That is true. That is true. We know the one guy that NBA teams or the NBA GMs will refuse to give it to. Anthony Davis, as you saw in the GM
NBA
poll
voters,
that we saw.
voters.
No. I'm talking about the GM survey from the other day.
Too.
Yeah. All right, let's go to our last guy. This is the deepest cut out of all these ones. Jalen Wells, second round pick for the Memphis Grizzlies. Keith, what are you excited about for him? And Memphis, please stay healthy, Grizzlies. Please, this season, stay healthy.
If they get healthy quick enough, this one, take it off the board because he probably won't play enough to matter.
Right.
But if they are still running through different guys at the small forward spot, I think there's a chance Jalen Wells in his rookie year sees a lot of run. And I think he may be one of the guys who can be not the answer, but part of the answer to what has been a long-term issue for Memphis at that small forward spot. He can really shoot the ball. He flashed for me very, very late in the draft process. When I was talking with our buddy Bryce, I was like, hey, Jalen Wells. And like Bryce got excited and then he showed up. But here's what then excited me. He put together a really strong summer league. Yeah, it's summer league. I get it. But when a second round pick really stands out and looks pretty good, that at least is a little eyebrow raising. Then in the preseason, he has built upon that. You've got it up on the screen right now. For those just listening, 45.5% from three, 44% overall, but not just the standstill three-point shooter. Can create a shot a little bit off the bounce. Got a little bit of passing to his game. He's a foul machine right now. He uses his hands way too much. He's not the quickest guy in the world as far as defending all these other wings and perimeter guys, but not bad either. But I'm a big fan of Jalen Wells. I think there's a chance because the Grizzlies need somebody to soak up small forward minutes. They need shooting still on that team. I think there's a chance Jalen Wells could be the guy who breaks through for them. If not this year, it'll come because one of the things I trust most in Memphis is their player development. They've got such a strong player development track record with both first-round picks, second-round picks, two-way players, all kinds of guys. I think we're in for a really kind of fun season here with watching him, Jake LaRavia, maybe step forward, especially while guys like Vince Williams and Gigi Jackson are out of the lineup.
Yeah, good call. There's opportunity. And again, that's kind of been the theme is opportunity for these picks. And Jalen Wells with the Grizzlies injury situation, like you said, Gigi Jackson, Vince Williams, there may be opportunity here for him. And I just saw you just added, I didn't even want to say it because I was surprised that he wasn't on your list to begin with, Keith. But
thought I was going to sneak it by you. So he's just my favorite guy. I love him.
His new favorite player in the NBA.
Yeah, he if he's not, he's going to be up there, and he will be up there by the end of the year. If you have not watched Oso Iguodala with the Phoenix Suns, I'm telling you, there's not a lot he can't do as far as being ready as a rookie. He's not a shooter. His range is the paint, but can really pass. He's really good defensively. He's proven to be a better team rebounder, meaning he's at least getting a body on guys. He's getting balls out of his area on rebounds. The outstanding defensive player. I love him. He's one of my favorite players in the league already. I may end up being my favorite player in the league here pretty soon, but I had to put him in there just because that's my guy. I'm going to mention him whenever I can.
Find someone who looks at you the way Keith looks at Oso. That's
true.
That's our words of wisdom to finish out today's show. We appreciate all of you for joining. Make sure you do subscribe so we can wear a Halloween. Do you have your Halloween costume yet, Keith?
I don't.
I don't either.
Figure it out.
I'm gonna have to do some shopping.
Yeah,
I hope hit 35K so Keith and I can do some shopping. Yes. Make sure you hit that subscribe button.
Yeah, we're down to like 2 weeks left if we're doing.
That's right. Let's get it done. Let's get it done. All right, everybody. We appreciate all of you for joining the show. Till next time. See you and stay safe.